Let's explore one of the more fascinating and concerning ways that UV radiation causes problems by interfering with the communication systems that cells use to coordinate their behavior. Cells aren't isolated units, they're constantly sending and receiving signals, both from neighboring cells and from their own internal monitoring systems. UV radiation throws this entire communication network into chaos, and that disruption is a major factor in cancer development. Inside every cell, there's a constant flow of molecular messages. DNA contains the genetic code, but it doesn't do anything by itself. To actually function, that code needs to be read and translated into proteins. This happens through RNA molecules, which act as messengers carrying instructions from DNA to the protein-making machinery. There are different types of RNA with different jobs. Some carry protein blueprints, others help regulate which genes get turned on or off, and still others perform various quality control and regulatory functions. UV radiation causes direct damage to RNA molecules, just like it damages DNA. When RNA is damaged, the messages it carries become corrupted. Imagine trying to follow instructions for assembling furniture, but some of the words are missing or changed to random letters. You might still be able to figure it out, or you might end up with something that looks almost right but doesn't quite work correctly. That's essentially what happens when cells try to function with damaged RNA. The communication problems extend beyond RNA damage. Cells rely on protein-based signaling pathways to respond to their environment. UV radiation can damage these proteins directly, or it can alter the genes that produce them, leading to malfunctioning proteins being made in the first place. These proteins are like a cell's sensory and decision-making system. They detect signals like growth factors, stress indicators, damage warnings, and instructions from the immune system. When this signaling system is disrupted, cells can misinterpret what's happening around them. For example, a cell might receive signals telling it to stop dividing because there's DNA damage that needs repair. But if the signaling pathway that receives that message is damaged, the cell might not respond appropriately. It might continue dividing when it should be pausing for repairs. Or a cell might receive a signal that it should activate apoptosis and self-destruct, but damaged communication pathways mean the message never gets through. These miscommunications allow damaged cells to survive and proliferate when they shouldn't. There's also something called epigenetic regulation, which is how cells control which genes are active and which are silent. This is crucial because different cell types have the same DNA but express different genes. A skin cell and a liver cell have identical genetic code, but they function completely differently because different genes are turned on. UV radiation can disrupt epigenetic regulation, causing cells to express genes inappropriately or silence genes that should be active. This can fundamentally change a cell's identity and behavior. What makes this communication disruption particularly problematic is that it's self-perpetuating. When cells can't properly sense damage or stress, they don't activate appropriate repair responses. This allows more damage to accumulate, which causes more communication problems, creating a downward spiral. Cells gradually lose their ability to respond correctly to their environment and internal state. The positive note here is that understanding these communication disruptions has opened new avenues for cancer prevention and treatment. If we can identify the specific signaling pathways most critical for preventing cancer and find ways to protect or restore them, we might be able to intervene even after UV damage has occurred. But the simpler and more effective approach remains preventing the communication disruption in the first place by blocking UV radiation before it can scramble these vital molecular messages.